All right, let's talk a little bit about line diameter and what it really means. Now, in this entire class, we've been talking mostly about braided lines, and that's what we're going to focus on. Now, if you're making a decision on line diameter, most of the time that comes into play when you're thinking about the type of cover that you're fishing. So if you were going to fish, let's say, docks or any heavy cover where you're in the back of creeks with lots of oyster beds and things like that, you may want to up the line diameter to give you a little bit more abrasion resistance and a lot more control over the fish during the fish fight. You're also likely going to be using heavier action rods to strengthen that control, and sometimes even larger spooled arbored reels, maybe the 4,000 class. So in those instances, I'm using something at least 20, not 10. I'm using like 20, sometimes even 30-pound braid in those instances. Now, what are some of the detractors that you have when you up the line diameter? You know the abrasion resistance goes up and the ability to pull on the fish goes way up. The negative is your casting distance goes down. It just goes down. You just can't cast nearly as far, and your knot size gets a little bit larger when you're using heavier braid because you're typically tying on heavier leaders, so you got to manage the length of the leader so that you don't end up with wind knots. Now these thinner braids, anything from 10-pound down all the way to 4-pound, and when I'm throwing my Ned rig, lots of times I'm using 6 and 8-pound super lines like Suffolk's 832 or Berkeley spider wire. So what I'll do in those instances is I put those on rods where I'm going to fish more of a wide open zone, where casting distance is going to matter, where throwing a lighter lure is going to matter. Because if you're throwing a heavier line diameter with a really small lure, it's hard to make any cast of any distance. But as soon as you start putting this really thin stuff on, especially the Suffolk's 832, it's silky smooth, you're going to have much greater ability to reach out to targets. So when you're fishing spookier fish that are in clearer water, those are the lines that you're going to want to use. 4, 6, 8, and 10, all in those super lines. But the zone has to be open. The negative? Well, the negative is you get a lot more wind knots in that lighter line. So you're going to really have to behave yourself and pay attention to the next section or two, which is all about how you feather the line with your index finger or your palm.